How we doing, guys? Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. I'm trying to get things squared away. So bear with me for just a second here. See if I can get this going. I'm just concerned I'm not going to be able to see any chat if anybody sends any messages. I got a new streaming software that I'm using to try and simulcast, but having a little bit of an issue with it. I think we can do it this way. We'll see. We'll test this out. So, all right, let's hope that this works and I can see some of your messages or whatever you guys send in. I'm trying to do it on my phone here so I can at least see the messages that way. So, welcome to the first live recap in probably a year and a half, 2 years almost. So, as you can see, a lot of things have changed. I got a little better equipment, a little better camera. I got some new software that's going to actually enable me to be able to show some really good kind of graphics to go along with it to make it a little bit better, just a better experience overall. So this is going to be the recap for the Dale Hollow tournament, the first one of the BFL Mountain Division. Wasn't too bad of a tournament. The weather was kind of nasty. We had decent weather going in through practice. I mean, cloudy and overcast, but it was a little bit warmer. And then as we moved on, it kind of got nasty from Friday to Saturday, especially like Friday afternoon to Saturday. Cooler temperatures moved in. It kind of dropped the bottom out as far as water temperatures even. So Wednesday's practice, we had water temperatures up around 53, 54 in some of the creeks. And by Friday afternoon, we were down to about 51, 52 degrees in those creeks. And by Saturday morning for the tournament, it had actually shut all the way down to 50, 51 to start, and by the end of the day, we'd actually tumbled down into the upper 40s, 48, 49 degrees, depending on where you were at. So, kind of shut the bite down for us for sure, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Welcome you guys that are watching now. So we'll go ahead and get it kicked off here. I want to throw up a little map, kind of show what I did. Now, don't pay attention to all the little dots there. Those aren't actual stops. Those are just a measuring tool that's on Google Earth here that you can actually use. That way you can actually kind of measure your stuff out. But I just did it to kind of show you guys where we started at. If you look here to the bottom right hand side, let me get this logo out of the way. So we kind of started here at Starpoint Marina. It's on the bottom right hand side down here at the bottom, right there. So that's where Blastoff was. Blastoff was at 7 a.m. And then basically my first run was all the way up to Mud Creek. And we can kind of transition over here to another cut. There we go. I'm back. So there's the kind of first stop is right here on the lower side. We went into Mud Creek. I just thought it was something quick because it's only about a 5-10 minute run from the blast off. I thought it would be a good way to kind of get started and run into something, maybe get an early start on it, if you will. Maybe get, lines wet, better opportunity to kind of catch fish and stuff. So we went into there, kind of tooled around a little bit. I tried fishing some points. Like right here was our main focus. I had a couple bites in practice. We started there because it's a good kind of secondary point. They were kind of moving in a little bit deeper into the creeks. I didn't really get any bites later in practice out on the main edges. So we pulled in here Friday, I think it was mid-morning, or actually it might have been early morning. We pulled in here and like second cast I had a bite throwing shell buster up there on that ridge. So I kind of figured this was going to be my starting point because it would be easy to get to, quick to get to, so I could start fishing while everybody else is kind of running down the lake. So it was more of a strategy of time management than anything as to why I did it. Plus we got a bite in there pretty quick, so I felt like it might have some potential. But we spent about 30-40 minutes in there come tournament day. Didn't get any bites on it actually. And there was another boat that even came in there and they didn't get any bites. They had one little one that they caught towards the back of the creek right before we left. It wasn't a keeper or anything, so we didn't spend too much time in there. I thought it was a good starting point. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out too well. So we'll cut back here. So then our next stop. So my plan all along was to go way up into the back of Sulphur Creek, back up in here at the top, was going to be my second stop if my preferred stop, which is down here, was not available. So as we came out of Mud Creek and kind of came up this way, there was nobody in there. So I immediately pulled in there and spent a couple hours in there actually. And I believe I have a shot of that right here. Yeah. So this right up here is actually that area. So this is kind of around Lilydale. It's kind of a community hole, so I didn't really feel like I'd have a chance to get into it, especially that early. I figured somebody'd be covered up on it. We got a couple good bites in there on practice, so really thought maybe it would work out pretty good for us, but we pulled in there and basically it was like smallmouth heaven. So we were catching smallmouth pretty steadily there. It was actually funny because my co-angler hooked into one right away, probably because we kind of started out towards the deeper end of it. Let me show you. So we started out like out here, just in case that cold front kind of moved them out deeper, because it's probably about 14 to 16 foot out there. Hang on, Toby, I see your question. Give me just a second here. So we started out deeper and we worked our way kind of closer, and basically I was throwing a crankbait, so kind of a myriad of crankbaits here. I'll show you right here. So I started off with the 1.5 flat, which is, why is it not letting me draw? Here we go. So this is the 1.5 flat right here. It goes to about 8 foot, throwing it on 12-pound tactical fluorocarbon, so it was getting 8 foot, maybe a little bit deeper on longer casts. Basically cranking that up in the cleaner area before the grass, because there was grass that was sitting in about 12 foot out, as far as 12 foot to deeper water. So that was a good bait because it kind of led right into that grass and then would just kind of tip the top of the grass as you were coming out off the point into the deeper water. So that's what we started with. My co-angler hooked into one. He was throwing, I'm not sure what he was throwing. I think it was a Rapala maybe, but kind of a crawl colored crankbait there. And he was throwing it up a little bit further back, like off to the side and closer to the bank. And he hooked into a smallmouth. And when I was going to net his fish, I set my rod down. Well, I net his fish and get it in the boat, and I pick up my rod and crank it maybe once, and magically I had a smallmouth on it. So I don't know if he was on there the whole time and just kind of chilling, or if I hooked him just as I started cranking. Maybe he was sitting there looking at the bait. I don't know. It was the funniest thing because we ended up basically being doubled up. Unfortunately, with that slot limit at Dale Hollow, we weren't able to keep either one of them. His was, I believe it was around 17 inches, and mine ended up being like 18 and a half inches. But it was a start, so we kept kind of throwing those baits in there. As we moved in closer, I actually stepped up to more of the 2.5, or I'm sorry, the 4.0, which is this one up top. It's a little bit deeper square bill, so I was using that as kind of that 4 to 6 foot transition range. And I got another smallmouth there, which actually ended up being the lower slot limit. I think it was about a 14 and a half inch smallmouth, so got to throw that one in the live well. My co-angler, I think, caught a couple more smallmouth throughout the kind of 30 minutes, 40 minutes that we spent out there. Let me check your message here, Toby. Yes, you do have to have a license for both states. There is like a small reciprocity between Kentucky and Tennessee, but it's like not a very wide range. I think it's maybe 100 yards, I think, from basically the state border. There's an island, I think, that they use to actually technically kind of clarify where that line is, and there's signs out there actually on the lake that kind of specify that, and at the boat ramps. But for the sake of safety and whatnot, just bought a whole year license for Kentucky and Tennessee, since we'll be spending a lot of time on that lake, and then if I make it to the regional, Chickamauga's in Tennessee as well. So we do have to buy individual licenses for both states, and if you fish as an angler in the tournament, especially as a co-angler, you want to make sure you have both licenses just to be able to cover yourself in case your boater takes you in predominantly one water or the other as far as the states go. But anyway, kind of back to it. So we were fishing. Let me go back to the map here just so I can kind of bring this up, make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. So we were fishing up in this area here. This is kind of where we were getting most of the smallmouth bites, more on that side of it. As we worked down this way, we were actually able to, I was actually able to get a couple largemouth in the boat, 2.5 pounds maybe. I think I had one that was close to 3 pounds. And we went ahead and ran that all the way down towards the back. I caught one on the corner, like right around here. And then I caught, I think there might have been two out here actually, because I think I caught one right about here. And then my third one was further down this way as far as largemouth. We caught about 8 or 9 smallmouth altogether while we were on that spot as a whole. It was just a really good smallmouth spot, but I knew that there was largemouth mixed in there. We caught one in practice as well as the smallmouth in practice. So there's plenty of fish in there. Just unfortunately couldn't get another keeper largemouth out of it or a 21-inch and up smallmouth, which would have been nice. Yes, red and orange was the main color for everything. So go back to my bait picture here. So as far as the crankbaits go, it was all about these here. So let me see if I can clean this up a little bit here. Yeah, so it was all about these baits. This is the Delta Red color by Strike King. So you have the 4.0 up here, and then you have the 2.5 crankbait here, which I use more for that 2 to 4 foot range, and then this is that 1.5 flat, which is good for that 8, I say 8 to 10 foot. If you're using lighter line like 10-12 pound test, you can get down to about 10 foot on a longer cast. I know they advertise it as being up to 8 feet, but I've been able to reach deeper with it just based on setup and stuff. So, but that was definitely the main color, especially in that area there. So as we spent probably about, I think it was about 2 hours there, roughly, hour and a half, 2 hours, because we went down that bank down the side and then we came back out towards the point and kind of fished around there a little bit. Like I said, we were catching fish. It just, we couldn't get largemouth. It was mostly smallmouth, which made it a little bit tougher. So we did end up kind of leaving there. I believe it was around 10:30ish, maybe 10. And then that's when we made our next run, which was this area. So actually, let me cut to this one real quick. So from there we left and we ran up Sulphur. So we went up this way here and ran all the way back here to the back of it. This is where the docks are back here. If you saw my practice video, there was the one fish that I caught off the docks there. That was actually that dock there. So let me go back to my other. So these are the docks up here. The top picture up here is the docks that we were fishing. So primarily focused on an area right around here. There was a guy out here in the grass flat, because there's a big huge grass flat that's kind of out there, and there was a guy that was fishing that area. So I started more towards the back of that dock, or I guess, I'm sorry, we're out here. It's kind of confusing looking at it little. So we were actually out here and not so much in that back area. Let me clean this up there. Alright, so we were out here, and there's two little docks that actually go out this way that they don't have in this illustration or in the satellite view. And we started on the outside one here, kind of actually towards that back end, because I didn't want to disturb. The guy was out here fishing this flat, and I was trying to be respectful and give him his space. He kind of had this whole area kind of cut off just from the where he was at, and that's kind of where I wanted to go, was closer to that bank and fish the inside dock. But we started on the outside here. My co-angler caught one, got a couple bites. He was throwing like a shaky head down in the grass underneath the docks in about 12 foot, 14 foot of water. There was grass down there underneath him. So he had caught one fish there. I didn't get anything. I was throwing spinnerbait on it. I'll actually show you. I think I got a picture of it on here. No, I do not. I got one here. So the spinnerbait's up here in the corner. Right here. So that was the spinnerbait that I was using. It's a Nichols Lures spinnerbait. It's a 1/2 ounce, and it's the Hammer Blade, I believe Green Crystal is what it's called. So it's a little bit better for like that clearer water, which it was moderately clear back there in the back, as most of Dale Hollow usually is. So um, kind of left it that way, or kind of used that around them docks and stuff. That's the one that I caught it on in the practice, and unfortunately they just weren't up in there very strong, or at least they weren't up in the water column in the docks. They seemed to be down closer into the grass based on the fact that my co-angler was catching them down there. But we wore it out on both sides. Once that guy kind of stuck out here for a while, so once we got to the end of this dock here, we actually pushed back into this area here and fished down this bank, up and down this bank, and I actually ended up catching another one of my smallmouth, or I should say, I called out my smallmouth, my 14-incher. I called him out working the ramp that's kind of back here in this corner. It was ended up being like a 15.999 smallmouth, which is just under the 16-inch limit, which is about as big of a smallmouth as you can catch and keep in the tournament down there. So used that to call out that other one, and then ended up catching my third largemouth here. So on the 1.5 crankbait, I ended up catching him there. And I did kind of throw a little bit of a jig around in a couple spots. I'll show you a picture of the jig here. So it's called it's actually something I helped design basically with Steven from Temple Jigs. It's a Raging Cajun. So it's got like a lot of red in it and green pumpkin to it. So it's perfect. It was a perfect match for what they were biting as far as the red. And I used the Falcon Crawl Strike King Rage Chunk there, which is that red and green pumpkin with a little bit of gold flake on it as kind of a trailer for that. I chucked that around there, just couldn't get any bites on it. I had a bite on it in practice a couple times, but again, I just couldn't get it to translate over to tournament day. But I tried slowing down just because of that colder air, and the rain had moved in at this point. It was around probably 11:30. The rain started hitting in a little bit harder and kind of making it a little bit nastier out there, and that's kind of when that water temperature started to drop down to that 49-degree mark. So we went back to basically slowing it down. But after we kind of hit that, we came back out towards this area here, and there was somebody else that had moved in, but he was out a little bit further, like off this way, and I actually asked him if he minded if I kind of cut back in behind him to fish those other docks that were up closer. So, and he had no problem. He said, yeah, go right ahead. I'm actually getting ready to leave anyway. So we snuck in there, and I saw one kind of busting on a shad. I pitched my spinnerbait in there. He hit it, but did not hit it good enough, so I ended up missing it. I think because I got a little bit excited because I knew he was there. And my co-angler actually ended up catching him behind me in the boat stall next to me because he was fishing the stall back behind me. And he actually ended up catching him. I believe it was him anyway, on his little shaky head worm that he was throwing. So at that point, my co-angler had 2 in the boat now. I was sitting on 4 with the smallmouth and 3 largemouth, and basically we hit that. We went up closer to the bank, kind of hit up by the bank there a little bit, didn't get any more bites, and then that's when we kind of made the run further out. So let me bring up my map. So we made the run from the docks basically into this creek arm right here. It was just a little arm that we had gone in and practice, and I had actually caught a couple. I shouldn't say I caught one, and then I got like 2 other bites flipping wood inside of that creek, and for whatever reason it didn't transition over. So we were working down this bank here basically in practice and in the tournament, kind of back towards the back there, and I couldn't get anything on it. So I flipped that jig around, the Temple jig, Raging Cajun there. I flipped that around. It's a ½ ounce, by the way. Flipped that around there. I couldn't get anything on it. We ended up, I also pitched a creature in. So I don't have a picture of it, but I've got one here. It's just a rodent, Strike King rodent in the Falcon Crawl color. That's a 4/0 trocar hook on there. Sorry, the camera doesn't want to focus if I put it in front of my face. But anyway, with a 3/8 tungsten pegged weight on it. That's what I was getting the bites on in practice. pitched that around all the wood in there on both sides of that creek actually, and couldn't get any bites on it. So I'm not sure what the deal was with the bite in there. As strong as it was during practice, I really thought I could go in there and at least fill out a limit with a smaller fish, but it just didn't want to work out for the tournament. So cut back to this. So then we didn't spend a whole lot of time in there, maybe 15, 20 minutes kind of messing around in there. And then from there we boogied on out and we went back out here. So then at that point we ran back out to this little creek over here, which I forget the name of it. But there was a pretty good point in there that, again, I had pitched in a couple times with a shell buster and got a bite. Here's a shell buster, by the way. Got it right there. And this is the hero structure bug, or rage bug, I should say, magnum rage bug. This little guy survived, I believe it was 6 fish catches and 4 bites that I didn't set the hook on in practice, and he made it the entire tournament. So the bad part was, let me see if I can get my camera to focus on it. There it goes. So the bad part was though it survived, I did not get any more bites on it as far as when I needed it later on. Never mind the dog hair, that does not come as part of the bait. But that's that shell buster head. So you can see it's got that little flat end on it, and it's basically like a football head design. Really moves through the rocks really well. This is the green pumpkin color. It's a 3/4 ounce. I like pairing it up with this Magnum Rage Bug basically. But yeah, that poor little guy got beat up. But I was happy that he made it because I only had one more because I thought I had a couple packages and I actually didn't. So that was the only one I had. So I kind of band-aided him all the way through the tournament and was able to make him through. But that's what we were throwing on this point. Let me pull up my other map here. See if I can get the camera to refocus on me here. So that is, let me see here. This point right here is where we were at. So it was kind of more this spot right here. Again, it was kind of the same setup as that Lilydale. Had that grass out here in that 14-foot range, and then clean rocky bottom up closer on that point that we kind of pushed through. So tossed that rig around there quite a bit. Still couldn't get any bites on it. I don't know why this thing won't focus. There we go. But that was another one that I had a lot of confidence in. I really thought I could get another bite in there. I've actually fished that in the past and been able to catch some off of it. I think it was 3 years ago, off of this general area, which isn't the reason I went there. I actually went there just on looking at it on the map, and once we got there I recognized it. I was like, hey, wait a minute, I've fished here before. So, but we spent a little bit of time in there. By this point it was raining pretty good, so wasn't able to catch any more in there. So then we moved out to the mouth of the creek. This is the same little creek here, and this is more the mouth of it. So we moved out here. I was like, well, maybe with the cooler water, maybe it's pulling them back out, maybe towards the main lake a little bit more. So we kind of hit like around around this flat here. Couldn't get any bites out there. Tried a couple different things, throwing a crankbait, throwing the shell buster and stuff like that. Just spent a little bit of time doing that, and still couldn't get anything there. By this point, it was around 2 o'clock, I believe, 2 p.m., 2:30, something like that. And I had thought about making a longer run, but with the motor acting the way it was, I didn't feel real confident. So the other spot that I was thinking about going was kind of down closer to the south end, which would have been a pretty long run for me to take with that motor acting the way it was. So I didn't feel real confident to do it. So I didn't. Basically, from that point, we left there and went back to Lily. And I figured it had rested for a while. I didn't notice anybody on it the couple times that we were coming out into the main channel and stuff. Didn't look like anybody was really fishing it. So I felt like maybe it would replenish, or I'd hoped that maybe it would replenish. we sat back down there for a little bit, didn't get any more bites. I think I caught one more smallmouth. It was about an 18 or 19-inch smallmouth there, but unfortunately just couldn't get them to bite like they were in the morning. So, so that kind of covers that. And then at that point it was like 3 o'clock, so we started working our way back. We went back into mud again. I was going to pull into here, but there were some guys in there already fishing. So we kind of went back into Mud Creek there just to try it out and see what we could get. It was kind of the same thing there. Just couldn't get any bites to really get going. Kind of made it a little bit of a struggle, but that's how it goes, I guess. And then we fished right up until literally the last minute, and then we checked in at 3:30 and had what we had. So I ended up with 4 fish for 10 pounds even. It was a 4-way tie with some other guys. I think they technically placed me in 86th place or whatever. But being a boater and my first time kind of doing it, and with the little bit of motor issues that were kind of limiting as far as like where I could go, I felt pretty good about it. I mean, 84th, 86th, whatever you want to call it, out of 203 boats. Felt like it was at least a respectable first tournament for all the nerves and kind of everything else. So that's kind of where we ended up. Like I said, I beat some pretty good guys, some anglers that I know have pretty good record, and some guys that have been doing really well and have a lot of momentum the last couple of years as far as wins and finishes and things like that. So I felt pretty good that I was able to at least top some of those guys. It's a confidence builder for sure. At this point, with everything going on, I'm not sure if we're going to get to fish the next one. I don't have a ton of confidence that we will, but it's supposed to be April 11th at Dale Hollow. And I've already got some good ideas and some plan put together, I guess you could say, for practice to kind of get after them. So should be a spawn down there that time. So we'll see what we can get into. See what we got here. The path that I took from past fishing or tournament rules, the path I took was just from practice, honestly. It wasn't anything in particular that made me want to fish where we did other than what we found in practice. I tried to stay away from doing too much history as far as previous tournaments. Some of it that obviously is valid as far as patterns and stuff I stuck with, but as far as general areas I kind of stayed away from for the most part. Mostly just kind of went out there and fished the moment, if you will, or fished kind of the seasonal pattern of what it should be and what we found in practice. So there really isn't any tournament rules as far as where you go and how you do it, beyond staying away from areas that you're not supposed to be fishing or places that are marked as being off limits. That's really the only rules that they have, which really only applies to, I think, a couple marinas have it posted that you're not supposed to fish on them. Nothing that I actually was around. I think there are other areas of the lake. But yeah, so thank you, Toby. I thought so. I felt pretty good about it. Like I said, I was one quality fish away from getting a check. So if I would have caught, I think it was like a 3.6, it would have placed me in like top 43, and I would have got a check. So just couldn't get that limit filled out. So it kind of ended up hurting me a little bit, but that's how it goes for sure. I mean, you're going to have those kind of results sometimes. That, like I said, it still puts me in a pretty good position, I think, moving forward. So we'll see what we can do the rest of the season, depending on kind of how things end up falling as far as the tournaments and rescheduling tournaments and stuff like that. I do want to kind of show you here. So kind of back to the baits a little bit. So like I said, I was kind of throwing everything, like all my cranks were on 12-pound test, at least these were, the 1.5 and the 2.5. I was using 15-pound test on this just because it is a bigger square bill. 17-pound test is what I use on the Shell Buster. Still maintain good contact with it and be able to kind of feel my way around. As far as this, I use a 20-pound test, and everything that I use is the Tactical Fluorocarbon by P-Line. So this stuff right here is, I've been using it for, I believe they came out with it 3 years ago. So I've been using it for 3 years now. I've tried a lot of different fluorocarbons. I always tell people, like, this is one of the best ones I've had in terms of memory issues or memory. and also in terms of just knot strength and abrasion resistance and things like that. Very seldom have I ever broke off a fish. Of course, I say that, knock on wood, but it's always been pretty good for me in terms of luck, in terms of breaking, and just how well it holds up for me. So it's got great sensitivity, great invisibility, that kind of stuff. All the stuff that you would want from a fluorocarbon. The other thing that I do want to mention is this stuff right here. This is another one of those things that I've been using for 3 years now. It's the KVD line and lure conditioner. It really helps a ton. I don't care what kind of fluorocarbon you use. There's always memory with it, and that stuff helps a ton in terms of kind of helping to reduce that memory and some of the effects of it. So it's something that I have been using for quite a while now. I actually kind of partnered up with them this year just to kind of help promote some of their products because it's something that I firmly believe in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have it on my jersey or say anything about it. If it's not something that I use or something I have a ton of confidence in, I won't have it on my jersey just to have a logo on my jersey. So with that stuff, like I said, it's a great product. It's not terribly expensive. I believe it's $11.99 or something for a bottle. I don't have a bottle right here close of it. I have a sample bottle, but I don't have like a regular bottle. But it's something that I'll put some more videos out as far as how I actually use it on my reels and line and stuff like that, as far as when I'm putting line on my reels. But if you have issues with fluorocarbon memory and stuff like that, I highly suggest something like that. I think you'll notice a difference with it. Yeah, Todd, I have. See, he knows. He's known me for a while. But I mean, it's good stuff. That's all I can say. But if there's any questions, I'll open it up now. I know we got just a few of us watching, or a few of you, I should say, watching. But if you guys have any questions as far as the tournament or patterns or anything like that, feel free to kind of plop them down in the messenger here. So, 'cause that's kind of covers everything that I wanted to cover as far as the tournament goes, and kind of what we did and things like that. Most of our pattern was around secondary points, the bigger rocky chunk rocky kind of points and things like that. And then most of it, like I said, a lot of the fish that I caught was on the shell buster setup here, and I can show you kind of how that hook looks too. And you can see how gnarly that head is. Like it just got destroyed. But it made it all the way through the tournament. But there's that. So that's how that hook looks. It's just a Pro V bend is what they call that. And it's great because it kind of helps keep fish pinned up. Like I think that's part of the reason why I don't really lose that many fish in it, is just because of the way that this bend is right down here on the bottom kind of helps hook into them and just stay with them. I believe it's a 5/0 hook on there, and it's a strong hook. I've never had an issue with it bending out on me. That's what I caught the majority of my fish on. And then of course the 1.5 flat. You can see there, it's a little bit chewed up. But that's kind of what I caught. I believe 2 of them on. Like I said, we caught a lot of smallmouth. It was just tough because of the way the slot is down there. It kind of messed us up. This is the 2.5 square bill here. And then the Big Daddy 4.0. I almost busted out the 8.0, but I didn't want to go too far. They were eating this pretty good, actually. I think I caught 1 in practice on it, and then I caught 2 in the tournament on it. One of the largemouth I actually caught on this. 4.0, which, like I said, that runs about 6 foot deep on a good cast. So, and it's got a real strong like wobble. You can feel it. Schooling fish. No, I didn't really notice anything schooling. Like I said, we found a few of them on points, like at the Lilydale area there. We found those, and then it seemed like there was a school in that grass flat around the docks that we were fishing up in Sulphur Creek, just because there were so many guys. Like there was 4 different boats that were fishing that general area while we were fishing the docks. So if that gives you any idea of the number of fish that were in that area. But we never really noticed anything as far as like actual schools. You'd see one bust once in a while, but I think it was still just a little bit too cold for them to really make themselves too visible. Factory hooks, yes. Generally speaking, yes. It's kind of based on availability. So like with my 2.5, I've changed them out to a extra wide gap. Of course, you can't really see them because they're shaking. But it's that triple grip, extra wide gap there. hook. These are just the regular factory hooks on the 4.0. So it just depends. A lot of the baits I try to, especially with my square bills, like my 2.5s and 1.5s, I change out a lot of hooks on. And when I start throwing my crankbaits, like my deep dive crankbaits, I tend to change out those too, just to have fresh hooks on them. I like that extra, like that triple grip style, like that extra wide gap on the treble. I feel like it does a lot better of staying hooked up on fish. No, I didn't really hear anything as far as other baits, but but I know the guy that won, I think, won basically the same pattern that I was catching him on. He basically sounded like he had about the same day as me. The only difference was that he was actually lucky enough to catch the fifth one, and it ended up being a good one. But it sounds like, based on what I know, because I fished with the guy in a tournament down there one time, and based on what I know as far as his pattern that he likes to use down there, it's pretty much the same or pretty close to the same deal as what I was catching mine on with that shell buster and stuff. So I think I was on the right thing. I just didn't hit the right area at the right time. He said he caught one fish, like his last fish was about 20 minutes to go, throwing basically like a jig head with a creature on it. So it was the right thing, just didn't work out for me. Rob, no, I have not heard anything else. I know everything's canceled up to April 5th right now. I'm kind of waiting until the end of this coming week before I pay for the next one. I've got a link, so me and Mike are linked together for the whole year. So I'm kind of putting it off just to see, because I don't want to dump $200 if I'm not going to actually get to fish it right away. So it might be, I have a feeling what will happen is we'll get canceled for April. I think by May for Cumberland we'll end up being able to fish that one, and then Barron in June. And I think what they'll do is push the Dale Hollow back to either July or August or something, which will make it tough because of middle of the summer on Dale Hollow. I've never been there for that. And if it's anything like Lake Cumberland, it's tough in the summer. So that'll be interesting if that ends up being what happens with it. But I've not heard anything officially yet. The last thing I heard was what they sent out. I believe it was last Tuesday or Wednesday. They said that they were canceling all tournaments with the exception of the Tackle Warehouse that's fishing right now. They were canceling all the tournaments up until April 5th. Yeah, good point, Todd. They're not schooling because they're practicing social distancing. You're exactly right. Based on what I experienced, they were experiencing a lot of social distancing. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. So, anything else anybody has any questions about? I think if we end up going back down in April, obviously it'll probably be that spawn time of season. I know the water temperature, I saw a report the other day on Dale Hollow Facebook page that water temps were up around 57, 58, I believe, in some of the creeks. So water temps are getting there. A few more weeks, they'll definitely be spawning pretty heavy, I assume. Hopefully we can get down there for that. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm hopeful. I'd like to be able to get down there because that's such a great lake, and this is such a great time of year to be down there to fish it. It'd be disappointing if we didn't get a chance to. But in the same sense, I understand it. So do what we have to. We can just do Facebook Lives all the time while we're all quarantined and not able to go anywhere and do anything and have a social life. So this will be our social life. We'll just do one of these like every Saturday from now until we're allowed to interact with people face to face again, I guess. Does anybody else have any questions or anything that they want to mention or ask about as far as baits or anything you want to see or any kind of information that you would like to hear about or that you didn't get to hear about? Yeah, tackle organization time. I would, but my boat's back in the shop and it's got all my tackle in it locked away since I'm trying to get that motor issue fixed. So I don't have any more. So I'll have a little more freedom while I'm out there on the lake and not be quite as limited and be able to run a little better. But yes, definitely preparing tackle, and I've already got my strategy put together for the next tournament and stuff. So it's just a matter of finding out if we're going to get to go or not. But how'd you end up doing, Rob? I never did see. Actually, I didn't even get a chance to talk to you. I didn't even see you. Yeah, my buddy was with somebody that was throwing an A-rig quite a bit. We got a lot of bites in practice on an A-rig Thursday, but then Friday we couldn't get him to touch it. So I should say I'm not overly surprised. Um, I would have taken that spinnerbait fish. I threw spinnerbaits quite a bit, but in the right areas anyway. When I wasn't throwing that shell buster or whatever, I was throwing that spinnerbait around just trying to see what I could get. I didn't have any issue with shorts on the largemouth side. The problem was just getting the fish. So smallmouth was more my problem. We were catching a lot of them, but that's how it goes down there. So we had a lot of fun anyway. Between practice and the tournament, it was good to get out, and that's actually the first time I've fished this year. So that if you watched my previous video on YouTube, the fish that I caught on the jerkbait that was like 4 pounds or pushing 4 pounds was actually my first fish of 2020. So I was pretty happy to get that. Yeah, probably a good idea on that kicker blade. Maybe that's what I was missing, especially with them firing on that red color and stuff. That probably was a pretty good thing to throw. I did try throwing like a red and black chatterbait, but I couldn't get anything on it. But if nobody else has anything else, I will ask. I'll throw this up here so you guys can see a little bit better. Make sure you guys check out all my social media and stuff. I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's at @tbaber fishing, and then on YouTube is Tony Baber Fishing. So like I said, I've been trying to put up weekly videos. Had a couple weeks there where I didn't get anything put out, but now that we're getting more into the season, you can expect more of the weekly videos kind of coming out with it. Everything from instructional stuff to just fishing, and we're going to do some, me and Curtis have actually talked about maybe doing some competitive little mini tournaments, if you will, head-to-head kind of stuff. I'd like to do it with like a Mystery Lake kind of thing with a couple guys. Thank you, Rob. You too. Look forward to seeing you. Hello, Ellie. How are you? But like I said, just make sure you guys subscribe to my social media stuff, and especially the YouTube, because it's just getting started. So it's kind of a up and coming, if you will, something I'm really trying to make some interesting videos and do some interesting stuff for you. If anybody has any ideas or anything that they would like to see covered, baits or techniques or lakes or water conditions, anything at all that they would like to see, feel free to drop a message in here, drop me a direct message through Instagram or here or whatever, and I'll see what I can do about putting a video out that might kind of geared towards whatever you guys would like to see. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for kind of contributing and talking a little bit and asking some questions. Hopefully you picked something up. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said, first time kind of running with this new software, so I like it because it's got a lot of capabilities that I can throw some other pictures and slides in and kind of interact with it. So I think it's good for you guys and for me. It makes it a little bit easier to try to articulate it and kind of show stuff. So once again, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys stay alert and kind of ready for the next one. If we don't get to go down to Dale Hollow in April, we'll see what we can do about trying to put something else out. Maybe that'll be interesting for you guys. So good luck and tight lines. Thanks, guys.